This is the CAD for the arcade that I've been working on. Made some little adjustments after the prototype, so now I'm gonna do a little walkthrough of how I get it ready for the CNC. It's the full machine there. And then I do an assembly with everything laid out. And I'm gonna cut it with the pretty side down. That really just lets me get into the pockets I need for this one. You can do it either way, but pretty side down leaves a good cut quality. You don't have to worry about using a different bit or anything. And then lets me get into the pockets, no tool changes, no flips, none of that stuff. Some of the stuff you really have to just look for here is making sure you're far enough apart. So you can check here, click two edges, and then down here in the corner, it'll tell you how far apart they are. I know the size of the end mill I'm going to use and the spacing and finishing pass and all that. So I just want to make sure I have, 7 or 8 millimeters, and I should be fine. Down here looks pretty tight. 8 1/4. It's tight, but it should be fine. I have it laid out. This is a 4x8 sheet of plywood. I laid it out the best I could to leave me some usable scrap on the end. And then, let's see, to make the DXF now, I guess another thing to mention is you can use mates to make sure that these are the right distance. And when you do updates and all that, the spacing would stay the same, but it's easy enough just to slide things around. You can just move them. It's not a big deal. All right, so now in here, to make the DXF, the easiest way to do it is edit in context. So you can see now we're in the sheet part, but we're going to add a sketch on here. The plane doesn't really matter. The use command, which is project or convert, I actually want the sheet in there as well. So if you select everything, it's going to start thinking, but sometimes this takes forever. I'll let this go and then explain a little more when it's done. All right, that took almost 2 minutes. Selecting all of it like that gets all the features. Sometimes if I do it manually, I'll miss little holes like this one. So it's worth the wait to just select it all and then let it go. All right, so we don't need that. We can rename this. And then now all you need to do is you can right click here and then export as a DXF. And then we're just make sure you know that we're using millimeters for the import. Everything else should be fine. All right, and then another little tip is if you go back into this layout and you move anything, for whatever reason, you need to regenerate that DXF. So you right click here and then update context, and this would redo that DXF. Of course, you need to re-export it and all that, but that's how you'd update it for any changes. Okay, now that we've got the DXF, it's time for CAM. We need to open the file. There's our DXF there. We exported it in millimeters so we could import in millimeters, so we know that should be right, but just in case, 1220 is about 4 feet, real close to 4 feet, so we've got 4 foot by 8 foot. That all checks out. I exported this using the size of the sheet just so that I could get this 0 point down here in the corner. I'm not going to cut this all in one shot because I want to do some speed checks to see how the edge quality comes out. So I'm going to start pretty slow. 1/4 inch single flute upcut. Cutting through in 2 passes just to make sure that the edge is as good as possible. Starting at 25 millimeters a second, but probably need to go faster. I'm gonna have the dial down pretty slow, 2 or 3 on the Makita, and then that plunge, I don't really remember what the plunge should be, so that should be close. I might need to go a little faster, a little slower, but that's the whole point. I'm not cutting the whole thing at once. I'm just gonna cut a test piece to start. So let's pick a small test piece. We're leaving the 0 there so we don't mess up the sheet. And let's do this part right here. So we're going to use part. That means we're cutting on the outside of the line. I know my sheet is about 15.3 thick, so I'm going to do, let's just go 15.6 just to give myself a little room. I'm going to do 0.4 finishing with the same tool, so no tool changes needed. And the tabs, I'm going to do 9 wide and 9 high because I'm using the rounded tab, so you need to go a little bigger than you normally would. All right, so now that we've got this selected, we can see that the finishing pass is there. We need some tabs. Easiest just to do all 4. And then I also know that I need to overcut these 2 corners because this fits together into another piece. So that's it for a test cut, I think. Depending on how that goes, then I've got 3 more small test cuts I can do if I want to go faster. But pretty much this is going to let me know what I need, and then I can do all the rest at once. And both jobs would start here, so that I know I can cut all this stuff out, and this hole that I already made is going to be in the right place. I won't waste anything. Hope that makes sense. All right, so we just save the project. And then save the CNC program. This lets you preview it. Some of you don't know, but you can just left click and drag to preview what's going on here. So we can see we've got rounded tabs, and it's going to cut down in 2 steps. And this second one's got 2 lines here because that's a full depth finishing pass, which I usually do a little faster than the regular cut. But that's it. I'm going to put this G-code file on the memory card and head out to the CNC. Okay, I'm going to drop in a quick little tip here. I'm going to be picky on how this cuts. If you're not picky, sometimes it'll jump around and do weird things. So I just want to set it the way I want. I didn't click it in order, so you can't do the easy as created deal. So I'm just going to do it the way I want. Start on another small one because I upped the feed rate a little bit. If anything goes wrong, I can stop it there. And then just go around. The big stuff's fine. Oops. The important part to me is that I do the inside features before I do the full cut. In case it happens to move, a tab breaks or whatever, I want it to do the inside features first. And then cut the part, just in case it comes loose. Way less scrap happens that way. So, if you didn't know, that's the most efficient way to do that. So we're going to save it again, take a little look. That says it's going to take an hour. I might need to go a little faster. But same deal, it's starting from the corner of the sheet. So this part that's not in there, I'm not going to have any problems with that being in the wrong spot or cutting into one of these pieces. So the key here is just making sure I knew where my 0 was all the time. So I could even come back to it the next day and know that this is where it's going to start.